Hey guys, Pastor Joel here. Week 4, coming to you actually from my home office basement because I'm under quarantine too, so can't go to the office right now. But this week is obviously special. This is Easter week. Yeah, it's a big deal to the church, a big deal for everybody, and it has a reason why, because it's obviously we are celebrating and remembering the amazing, miraculous gift of Christ on the cross, but also the miraculous raising of Jesus from the dead and what that means. And so we've been spending a lot of time digging and reading about who Jesus is and what Jesus does and who Jesus is to me. And I came back to a passage that has always meant a lot to me. And I came back here because kind of an odd thing, as I was working on these devotionals for Easter, I came across this reference and I never heard of it. So after Jesus was crucified, they took him down and buried him, and they prepared the body for burial. And some of the women did that, Mary Magdalene and Mary, but also in there was the name Nicodemus, and I had never remember reading that before in John. And so Nicodemus is a really interesting character because he's actually the recipient of probably the most famous verse in the world, John 3:16. For God so loved the world. It's that discussion that Jesus is having with Nicodemus where this verse comes out. And so Nicodemus is a Pharisee. And so Pharisees, as we know, are never really well liked in the Gospels. They're kind of they're considered kind of the bad guys that are trying to get Jesus. But here we have in John chapter 3, we have a Pharisee, Nicodemus, coming to Jesus at night, which is because he doesn't want to be seen with him in public, because obviously all the other Pharisees don't like him. But we have Nicodemus coming to him and asking him some serious questions, and Jesus is giving him straight answers about, you need to be born again. You need to be born again. And Nicodemus is confused out of his mind, saying, I can't be born again. I've already been born once. I can't do this again. And Jesus is like, no, you're missing the point. This is not about physical birth again. This is about spiritual birth. This is about being born again to a faith that is founded not on what we've done, not on what we say we've done, not on earning our salvation, but a faith that is born through the sacrifice and the grace of Jesus Christ. And so Nicodemus is just kind of going over his head, and then we don't really hear about Nicodemus ever again. And all of a sudden, I just picked this up here at the very end. Jesus is buried, and Nicodemus comes to help prepare the body. And to me, this implies that there is something more, that Nicodemus really truly cared, or maybe he really truly got it, or maybe at some point he realized that this Jesus is who he says he is. There's something real there. There's something tangible there. That there's something, yeah. And so it led me back to a passage that I've used a lot for a lot of different things in Hebrews chapter 12. And this verse is so neat to me because it lays out who Jesus is in our lives as we are running this race of life. The Bible likes to use, especially Paul likes to use the analogies of faith, of a race as part of our life for faith. Like we're just running a race. And so this is what Hebrews 12 says. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Now, this is such a neat race run thing too, because here we have coming from Nicodemus, asking all these questions about life. How can I be born again? How do I know this? And Jesus is like, you've got to be born spiritually again. He's like, this is not something that we can do in our life. We cannot make ourselves saved. We have to trust and we have to rely on the one who can do it, who has done it, Jesus. He's the one who has gone before us. And this is why I like Hebrews 12, because it says he is the founder and the perfecter of our faith. Other versions say he's the author and the perfecter of our faith. It lays out right away what it is. Whose faith it is? It is ours. We are running the race. We are Christians in this life trying to run the race. Absolutely. But who founded our faith? Who gives us the faith that we need to do to run this race? Jesus. But who perfects our faith? Jesus. Who completes our faith? Jesus. He starts, helps, and finishes our faith for us. Like, and not to say this is just a lax that we can just be neutral, that we can just be like, yep, Jesus has got this. I don't have to try. I don't have to do. No. But this is about in our life. It's not I have to run this, and I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to do this because I need to prove that I'm a good Christian. Now, obviously, we need to work. We obviously need to love, and obviously need to work out our faith. But this isn't about earning our way, earning our value, saying if I don't do this, Jesus won't love me. No. Jesus is the one who's the author, and he's the one who perfects it, and he's the one who completes it. So Bible says that he came so we might have freedom, and that we would have life abundantly. And there is something so freeing and so grace and life-giving when I came to the realization that I don't have to earn my salvation. That I can just learn to love and follow and enjoy knowing my Jesus. Digging into his word and seeing what he says. And valuing that in life, and then responding in worship to what I've learned about him, what he's shown me and what he's said to me. Not doing it because I have to do it. Not doing it because I am terrified that if I don't do this, I won't go to heaven. No, because I have faith in the founder of faith and in the completer, the perfecter of faith. That's what the cross did. The cross made it. He gave me his righteous standing. He gave me his good standing before God, and he took my sinful standing away. He switched it. I didn't have to offer them the trade. He just took it and gave me his. That's what the cross did. And the resurrection sealed it and made it permanent and gave us new eternal life. End of story. So that we may be with God forever. That's what we look at the end of the Bible. We look at the end of Revelation and see that God is with his people, and he is our God, and we are his people. That's what Revelation's about, being with God. And Jesus did that as the author and the perfecter of our faith. So let's just break this down a little bit, as with that in mind as we're digging into this. Since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. So in Greek metaphor, when they'd run these races, there'd be at the end of it, there'd be a crowd cheering us on. And they're not there to just watch, but they're cheering. They want us to finish the race well, to cross that line, do the best that we can. We're running this race. Well, the race has already been won. The race has already been taken care of. The race has already been finished by Jesus, who has accomplished all these things. We just have to continue on in our faith, trusting in Jesus, who has already accomplished the work of paying for our sins and forgiving us and giving us eternal life. But we run this race because sometimes being a Christian can be hard sometimes, because we have to deal with things in a different way. We stand up for truth. We stand up for life. We stand up for love, and we see Jesus in us, and it compels us to be a Christian, to love things, and to stand up for things that are hard sometimes. And so that's what he's talking about. It's not saying we have to do these works and therefore it's hard to run the Christian life. No, sometimes it is because we follow Jesus so intently and so closely that the world sometimes doesn't know what to do with us. And so it rejects us, and it persecutes us, and it makes life difficult. And we run and we pursue through that, knowing that Jesus has accomplished it and done it already. That he understands what suffering we're going through. He understands how difficult it is to stand up for truth in the world. So we are surrounded by that great cloud of witnesses, and they are there to help us and encourage us. And we, as likewise, are part of the cloud of witnesses for other people we're running life with. Even though we are now in a quarantine and we can't rub shoulders together and do youth group together, we can still live life and encourage. We live in the world, obviously, of YouTube, of Zoom, of FaceTime, of things like that, where we can communicate with texting. There are ways to encourage and challenge and love each other through these difficult times, that we can come through out the other side of it more mature and have grown in our faith, because Jesus is the perfecter. He's refining us. He's making us better Christians for his glory. And it goes on to say, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. I like to do hunting, and I've done some mountain hunting. And what you do there is, I learned a very valuable lesson the first time I went out, is that ounces matter in the long run. You have a pack and you have things in there when you go hunt through the mountains all day long. And after a while in the store, you put it on, you're like, oh, I've got this. This is no problem. This is just a couple extra pounds. Well, after multiple hours of hiking through the mountain in thinner air, every pound matters, and you're ready to lose it, just because you want it to be easier to walk around. And the same thing with runners and swimmers and people like that who are going. You're not going to run a race wearing sweatshirts and sweatpants and putting weight on. You're not going to run the backpack on. It's just you're going to lose time. You're going to be slower. We just all know that it's going to be more difficult. So it says, let us lay aside every weight. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. It's harder when we continue to cling to our sin. We want to hang on to our guilt because we think we need to feel guilty, or we need to think sometimes we have the shame, we don't want to let it go because we don't want to be open about it, or we don't want to trust Jesus with everything. We want to do it ourselves, and that can be exhausting. Well, stop it. And by stop it, I mean lay it at the feet of the cross. Give it to Jesus, who is the founder, the author, and the perfecter of our faith. This is why Easter is a major deal, because it seems sometimes too easy, the fact that God has gone before us, and all we have to do is lay it down and say, God, I can't do this. I need you to do it. It's difficult, but at the same time, it's freeing to be able to do that, to lay it down. And I think this is what Nicodemus didn't get, because it wasn't that Jesus was speaking in such abstract language. I think Nicodemus was like, no, it can't be that way. It can't be that easy. I have to do this, and I have to spend my life doing this. No, it's just give it to him. And it says, looking at Jesus, the founder, perfecter of faith. So in these races, when we run, there'd be a special spot set aside for those who are running for, who we want to really, who's in their final sights, the final finish line, that we are pushing everything we have to finish strong. And in that spot, looking to Jesus. And this is twofold, because one, our relationship and our lifetime of running the race, and we get to the end of this, we see Jesus, and we're like, man, I have lived the life and my life is done this way because of you, Jesus. How precious are you to me? How much do I love and care about my Jesus? And there he is, watching, cheering, waiting for me to come across that finish line, to come home in heaven and say, well done, my good and faithful servant. I long to be that kind of servant to him. But also because I see him there and know that he has already accomplished it. This isn't about, I have not trained enough, or I have not done enough, or I have not done this right, or I've sinned too much. It's looking out and seeing him and saying, thank you, because you have already done it. I just persevere the best and trust in you and grow in you and enjoy in you. What a great finishing work. And he did this because, and here's why this is the crucial point to Easter here. And it says, this is talking about Jesus, who for the joy that was set before him. This is an important phrase, for the joy that was set before him. Sounds very Jesus-like, right? But here's the rest of the sentence. For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross and despised the shame of the cross, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. The cross is Roman punishment and death penalty perfected. The cross was actually banned and illegal, I don't know how many hundreds of years after this, but it was eventually banned because it was so horrific and it was so awful. It was definitely a Roman way of making people suffer but yet guarantee death. It's an awful way to do it. It is an awful way to die. It is an awful way to die. And so why on earth would they phrase it this way? For the joy that was set before Jesus, he endured the cross. Obviously, he didn't, I don't think, enjoy the cross. I don't think any person with a human flesh at the time would have ever enjoyed that. So the question then is, what is the joy that was before him? On that cross, in that moment, he was thinking of you and me. He knew what he must do to pay the price so that we will have his righteousness, and he will take our sinfulness on that cross. In that moment, he knew that the joy would be, when I have accomplished this, when it is finished, when it is done, there will be the exchange, and I will have Joel's sin, and he will have my righteous standing before God, my good standing before God. And because of that, my joy will be complete when I raise up, and in the last days, we will be together forever. we will get to be in the kingdom of heaven together forever, because that is what the Bible's about. That's when you get to Revelation, it says, and God will be there, and we will dwell with God, and he will be our God, and we will be his people. That's how the Bible ends. God wants to be with his people, and we want to be with God. That's what we were designed to be in a relationship. We were designed to be with God. And so therefore, the joy that was set before Jesus in the cross was the joy of being together by taking the sin of the world. Joy. Joy overcoming. The driving force of obeying God and going through the horrific punishment of death is that we can be together. And it says he despised the shame of the cross. The cross has been very glorified. It's probably not the right word, but it has been very made up to be something we wear a lot. It's jewelry, it's things like that. We talk about the cross. But the cross, when this happened, when Jesus was crucified, was considered the most shameful way to die. It says in the Bible that only criminals are crucified. And here we have Jesus, an innocent man, the Son of God, being shamefully killed. And then it flips it, and it completely says, but it swings the other way. He despised the shame and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. After the crucifixion, Jesus was buried, but he didn't stay dead. He resurrected and defeated the final enemy of death, defeated sin on the cross and death in the resurrection, so that we don't have to live with the sin. We have the righteousness of Christ, and that we can live eternally with God forever. And it says that he's seated at the right hand of the throne of God. And I love it because John, I don't know how many years ago, talked about this idea of Jesus sitting down and the finality of saying, it is finished. And he sits down, and that's it. Jesus has accomplished his work. And he wants to grow in us and change us now as we run. As we say, Jesus, you've already done this, but I'm going to run for you. I want to run to continue my life, to continue in the joy of being a Christian, to continue to get to know you, to continue to seek after you, Jesus, because you are my Jesus. And so I often wonder, going back to Nicodemus, what changed? I won't know. I won't know until I get to heaven. I really won't. But what changed? To ask these questions at night, and then here at the end of Jesus' life, we have Nicodemus coming here with all these spices, helping to prepare the body. Did he choose? Did he understand? Did he make the choice? I don't know. But I'm often wondering that too. So thanks again for listening, guys. If you have any questions, please shoot me a comment or a text if you have things you want to talk about. Otherwise, we'll shoot to talk about some parables in the next few weeks here. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.